Good morning. Welcome again to the talk show here. And we have a wonderful guest this morning. We don't need 3 or 4 guests because she's got so much to tell us, and she's so successful in everything that she does. So I'd like you to meet
Gail Daley.
Gail Daley, yes. And this, on top of everything, Gail Daley is a friend of mine for many years. So this is a great, wonderful thing for me to be able to talk to her and investigate some of the wonderful things she does, because she's published, well, I've got to start at the beginning. Tell us how you got started being a writer, Gail.
Well, I always wrote. I didn't actually try to get anything published until my son, Andrew, did his first book, which was a youth fiction about a couple of twin boys that lived in a magic town, and it was kind of one of those after the apocalypse type things.
Oh.
And I was helping him edit it, and then I thought, you know what? I've got all these books that I had half started all the time I had been married, and even before that. So I just started working on some of them. The first of them was actually this book, which was originally set up to be a Western.
Oh.
And I thought, you know what? I want some sci-fi elements in this. So I invented the portals, which were kind of a wormhole to and from.
Oh.
And then I decided I didn't want to do a conventional Earth colony where they had to pay attention to what Earth said and did. So I started the St. Anthony series. There are actually 6 books in this series. This, of course, is the first one, which kind of introduces the planet and the society and things like that. The second one is called The Enforcers, and it has a character that appears in this one. And then the third book, The Gaslight Bandits, I followed the same type of pattern. The main character in that one appeared in the Enforcers.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the fourth book, I went back to Earth, and it's called The Portal Lawman, and it's about what Earth society turned into.
Ooh.
And in my vision of the apocalypse from Earth, it didn't come in one great big cataclysmic boom thing. It just kind of slowly slid into it, because they had earthquakes, they had pandemics, which kind of took off on basically what we're undergoing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a lot of social unrest going on, rioting, things like that. And in my vision of it, people don't change that much. They want to live their lives, and they want to do what they basically were continuing to do.
Right.
And these cities, of course, were under martial law. Now, the outlying communities had something else going for them. They had militia, which is, basically were citizens that lived there.
Wow.
And the militia kept order. They kept the rioting out. And I took that kind of from something that happened during our pandemic. There was a town up, I think it was in Maine, where rioters tried to come in, and the citizens basically joined with the sheriff's office, and they got out there. They took out their arms and ammunition. They took out there, and they said, "Go home."
Oh.
And the rioters went home. So that's kind of what I based my militia group in.
Mm-hmm.
And the Portal Lawman is basically about the town of Laughing Mountain, which is where the portal is.
Mm-hmm.
And in that particular book, I also introduced the other colonies because St. Anthony was not the only gateway that they utilized.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of fun. The fifth book in a series, I went back to St. Anthony, but it actually started out on Earth, and it was about a woman whose parents were killed in a car wreck, and she had a teenage sister and brother that were depending on her. And basically, the state told her that, first off, she didn't make enough money to support 3 people. And she said, so, okay, I'll go on whatever. And they said, no, I said, that you make too much money to be eligible for that.
Oh.
So they stuck them with living with one of her mother's brother. And her mother's brother looks like a nice guy, but he's really a criminal. And her mother had known about Laughing Mountain, and because she had roomed with one of the girls in college. And so she had left, the girl's name was Jade, she had left Jade some information about it. So when Jade and her brother and sister saw their uncle kill some people that tried to break into his house, they decided it was going to get a little too hot. So they went to Laughing Mountain, and she basically put in an application as a graphic artist, and there was someone there that was willing to take it. I had introduced this person in the Gaslight Bandits. Her name was Hortense Jones. She's an elderly head of the clan, and she had started a book publishing business, and she needed an illustrator, so she offered Jade a job. So they went there, and most of the book there is about how they adapted to the colony and how different it was from them being home. And now in the last book in that particular series, the Clone Initiative, their uncle, who they had ran from, got killed.
Ooh.
So the portal runners, who are the people that basically smuggle things into and out of the colonies, did not want his estate going up on auction because they didn't know how much information he had about that. So they went back to St. Anthony, and they told the man, he was the boy in the other book, but he was a grown man now. They told him, he says, you need to come back and claim your uncle's estate. So he goes back to Earth, and he claims the estate, and they search through it and all this stuff. And this particular book, I hit the clone idea pretty hard, and one of the things about it was that people didn't really consider them people.
Oh.
The companies who created the clones said they were property. So I kind of hit back at that pretty hard, and we have a group of escaped clones who basically end up, who are actually in one of the spin-off books. But we talked about that, and the heroine in the Clone Initiative, she and a friend of hers who also appears in another one of the Outlaw Colony books, they got to this clone farm after there had been a massacre.
Ooh.
And Tally, that's the girl, she and Liam, and that was the boy, they found 6 babies that were about to be decanted they were cloned babies that were about to be decanted, and there was no, so they took them with them. Yvette and her sort of husband, Matthias, went in a different room. They found 7 toddlers.
Oh my gosh.
Who were hungry, wet, tired, and she got really mad. She says they left these babies here to starve, and so they took them with them. So they're basically they were going to take them back, but they couldn't take them back to Laughing Mountain because all the clones had tracking implants.
Oh.
So they had to remove the tracking implants before they could take them back to Laughing Mountain.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
So they went to Liam's uncle's house. That's where they went. And while they were there, a group of freed clones, one of whom was a girl they had helped rescue, attacked the house because they were under the impression that they didn't want normals having those kids, and there was no way they could have taken care of them anyway. Anyway, they lost the fight and had to run. Mm. And so Tally and Yvette ended up with the babies and the toddlers.
Wow.
And it's pretty good with that. Tally and Liam eventually go back to St. Anthony because there the children are just children. Oh. They're not clones or anything else, they're just children. Oh. And of course, Yvette and her husband had always intended to return to, they were really there to take some educational classes, so they had intended to return to Arcadia, which was one of the other colonies. Mm-hmm. The spin-off series is called The Outlaw Colonies, and the first book doesn't really have anything in it except for the colony, of course. it doesn't really have any ties to the other books. And I picked that one to start with because, the blurb for it reads that it was the first planet the Laughing Mountain people had discovered when they were looking for some to sell.
Oh.
And it was a doozy. The animals were huge. And the plants were huge, and they were predatory. And basically, if the animals didn't get you, the plants might. So nobody really wanted that one. So but they did have it open for people that wanted to. The one thing that planet had going for it was something that a lot of scholars were interested in, but they couldn't take it. They couldn't use it on Earth because it would reveal the existence of the colony.
Ooh.
But it had evidence that another spacefaring race had at one time lived on that planet and abandoned it.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
So the first book on that one is basically about what the it's about what the about the planet itself. It introduces the planet, and it's kind of the guy that ends up being the main character on that one. He was a guide, and he took the job because he was broke and he needed money for his farm.
Mm-hmm.
And while he's guiding this new group of scholars over to this settlement, they think the others left. He gets accused of stealing something, and he of course he doesn't. But then the guy that accused him of stealing gets killed, so he's got to figure out his own. He's got to figure out who did it so he can clear his name, that kind of thing.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah. That's called The Apex Predator.
Mm-hmm.
The second book in that series is called Game Theory, and it's about Yvette and Matthias going back to the planet Arcadia. Now, Arcadia has a government set up I patterned it on Israel's government.
Oh.
It's kind of military. It's quasi-military, but everybody has to serve, but you don't have to stay in the military if you don't want to.
Oh.
And basically, Matthias had been on Earth to try to find a way to get into the Earth's Portal Authority computers so that they could insert a virus that would keep the Portal Authority from finding Arcadia.
Mm.
And he did that, but he made friends with a guy named Devin, who was one of the people that lived there. Anyway, Devin got him into the area, and they inserted the virus, and then Devin gave him and the other students that were there, one of whom was from a planet called Barsoom, and I'll get into that in a minute. But anyway, they it was basically the formula for creating a portal and having it search.
Oh.
Which Earth authorities had really tried to make sure that did not get out, but Devin's grandmother had belonged to the original group, and she hid the formula in her diary, and then she hid her diary when they came looking for it.
Oh.
So then we have that one, and that basically there's when they get back to Arcadia, there's a group that wants to take over the portal. And they have plans to go in and attack Earth and supposedly conquer Earth and so on and so on.
Oh my gosh!
And Devin and his group don't want them to do that. So that's kind of. But anyway, that's what the second book is about. Now the third book is called Barsoom, and I actually went to ERB Incorporated and got permission to use that title as the colony title from them. They were very very gracious about it. As long as I put in there that it is a trademark of ERB Incorporated and that it's, I have permission. And that particular colony, like Arcadia, was a designed colony, but they liked the Renaissance lifestyle. They wanted the Renaissance lifestyle, but they didn't want to give up their high-tech gadgets to do it. So everybody dresses and their social conventions and stuff are very much like that of the Renaissance. They allow dueling, and they allow, they have robot servants because, of course, they're very high tech. They've got all these things.
I think that's fun too.
It's really fun. Anyway, when Randall, who was the hero in that one, when invites Devin and Tash, who's one of who was Tally's sister, back to Barsoom with him, and he brings his copy of the crystal with all the portal technology in it.
Oh.
And he turns it over to his father and his fiance's father, who in their lab. Anyway, somebody breaks into the lab and gets killed because they want the crystal. So the crystal disappears. So now they've got to find it and clear their fathers, because the authorities, of course, thought, well, hey, it's your lab, So that's about that one. I have 2 or 4 main characters in that one. I have Devin and Tash, who were from Laughing Mountain, and their story started in the Clone Initiative, so it kind of leads a little bit into
so
that. It's kind of a slow burn.
Recognize them.
Yeah, it's kind of a slow burn type thing. Randall and Judith, who's his fiance, they've been supposed to get married to each other since they were children, so they're really, it's one of those things where you think, oh yeah, I'm going to marry them someday, but they haven't really figured out yet they're emotionally attached to each other. So I have that one, and that's kind of a police murder mystery type thing too. The 4th book in a series is called Babylon Shattered. Now the 5th or the 4th colony was called they called it Shangri-La, and it was supposed to be a utopia.
Oh.
But it was socialist based, and unfortunately, the people that created the laws and stuff did not take into account that people are just downright ornery critters, and they'll lie and steal to you for their own advantage and stuff. So they were always having problems like that. They didn't have a lot of robots like the way Babylon did. So they went back and did the indentured servant thing. People that came through, they either paid the heavy fee up front to immigrate, or they signed on as indentured servants for 4 or 5 years so they could do whatever.
How do you think of those things?
Anyway, the heroine in that one, her name is Clementine. She, her parents, when they came through, they paid the fee so she would not be an indentured servant, but they went into indentured servitude.
Oh.
So she was basically came in as a free person, and she ended up mentoring with a woman who told fortunes. Now, Shangri-La is very heavily psychic. They're all really into the psychic things, and
I'm sure that this time that you've been allowed to talk and tell you about this wonderful book is going to make for a lot of readers, because it sounds just fantastic. Unfortunately, we ran out of time.
Okay.
But I'm so glad you had today, and the book sounds absolutely fascinating. I'm going to steal that one from you.
Okay. I do have one other thing. All of my series are going to be on special during Black Friday and Cyber Monday.
Oh, good.
So they'll all be low priced. This one, unfortunately, will not be, because it's only available on Amazon, and they're not real good about, or I haven't figured out how to make it work yet where I can do a discount on them. But anyway, but the other books will, and the paperbacks, books, if you buy a set, you automatically get the entire set at one time, you automatically get a 20% discount.
Fantastic. It's great. And thank you so much for coming and telling us about these books. They just sound absolutely fascinating. I like that kind of thing anyway, so that was wonderful. Thank you so much for coming in,
Thank you for
Gail.
having me, Carole.
Yes, and stay a friend, good friend of mine.
You are. You always will be.
Okay, honey. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.